Well, welcome everybody. We're here with the Climate and Cuisine podcast with the best guest, Robert Cheeke, a friend of mine, an author, a bodybuilder, an advocate, a friend. I think you have many more labels maybe than I do. Between us, we have a lot of titles. That means we wear a lot of hats, and I'm wearing my Colorado buff hat for you today. It's cold here in Florida, and I'm sure it's cold where you are. How are you
Yeah,
today?
yeah. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. It's actually, you know what? I sat out in the sun. I had a jacket on. It's probably below freezing, but it's a sunny day, so it feels warm to me. So all is well out here in Colorado.
Good, good. And what is on the forefront for you next? Anything you're working on that's really exciting that you can kind of maybe share with us?
Uh, it's funny you ask. I have a lot of different things going on. I am working on some new projects, some new writing projects to be determined and explained later on. There's still fairly early stages, so but I am still writing. That's something that I've done for pretty much my entire life. And so I'm still doing that. In fact, I hope to make some progress on that today, perhaps. We just wrapped up our Plant Powered Athlete Awards, which was a lot of fun. I've got some upcoming tour stops. I've got let's see, uh, I've got the Rhode Island Veg Fest coming up in February. I've got the Vegan Cruise coming up in March. I'm in the process of moving. We're still staying in the same town, but moving from one location to another during wintertime in Colorado, which is difficult
Ugh,
with snow and ice and all of that. But that's on the forefront right now. So I'm packing at the moment. You'll see I have a few things behind me, but those are really just the top levels of the bookshelf. Everything else below is empty and boxes and things are boxed up around. So I just left enough things on the bookshelf to do podcasts and do interviews. And then all this stuff comes down in 2 weeks also. And then we start moving. So I have a lot of moving parts, so to speak, right now. And so I'm just kind of taking it honestly, like a day at a time. I mean, I just got a text today from an animal sanctuary to ask if I could come out and film tomorrow for veganuary stuff. So I'll probably drive out, be freezing temperatures, high of 37 tomorrow. So around freezing, I'll be out at the farm tomorrow filming. New things come on my radar all the time. And so I really just kind of take it in stride. And sometimes each day or each week provides something new. Like, hey, here's this new invitation to speak, or here's this new podcast invitation, or here's this new whatever. And, I either say yes or say no, and I go from there.
do you ever say no, Robert?
I've actually have a hard time saying no. I mostly delay, procrastinate, even with this podcast. I mean, you reached out months and months ago, and I'm not always in the right headspace. I'm not always in the right um, situation to be able to do something. I sometimes get overwhelmed. Sometimes I do wear too many hats or say yes to too many things, and that becomes problematic. And so I actually set some. I'm not a real big New Year's resolution person. I mean, I kind of have goals all year round. I don't wait around for a certain day. It's just not my style. But I did sit down. It wasn't on New Year's Day or anything, but recently I did sit down and wrote down some things I'd like to focus on this year. And one of those is saying no more. Say no to some of the smaller things and yes to some of the bigger things. And just seeing how that plays out in 2025 and if that provides more balance or more opportunity or more progress. And so I'm juggling that right now. And so saying no is difficult. That's a psychological people pleasing aspect that I've kind of carried since I was a kid. And I'm still at 45 years old, still in that boat where, I mean, even a text comes in today. Can you come out in the cold and hang out in the farm and record? And I sure, I'll be there. What time? That's what I do.
Right.
But as the year goes on, I'm going to have to pick and choose. For example, I'll tell you right now, Aaron, I don't plan to tour very much this year. I toured to about 25 cities last year. It
You mean
was
for your book?
for my book, for my speaking, for anything. I
Okay.
was in 25 locations last year. I mean, even 5 trips to Canada alone. And one time I was on the road every weekend for like 10 out of 12 weekends. So I only had like 2 weekends over the course of 3 months where I wasn't on the road. And I'm pretty much okay with that. It just gets really expensive. It's not necessarily like it's exhausting. I mean, I'm very nomadic. I'm kind of born to be on the road. I'm very comfortable with that, staying in hotels or motels or people's houses, or airplane travel or long drives, 7-hour drive to the next stop, whatever. I'm okay with that. But it's a really big investment for, you know, selling $20 books that have like a $2 margin of profit. And so I just dig a big hole and dig a big hole and dig a big hole in the name of chasing a dream or passion or whatever. And I'm just going to scale back this year. So I basically won't be going very many places, except for, like I already mentioned, a couple, Rhode Island and the cruise, and those have been booked for months since last year. And then we'll just see. We'll see what happens. Mostly, I think when I get invitations and all expenses paid and travel paid, and there's an opportunity to speak and exhibit, that would make sense. But like I
Right.
was funding so much of it that it made it very difficult to be sustainable. And that even led to things like, moving and lowering, expenses and all that. And so there's consequences to this idea of saying yes to everything and chasing a passion that's a very costly one.
I completely understand that more than you probably know. Yes. So when you, how do you think when you're, have you said no to anything yet? Like, I'm wondering how that's going to feel to you.
Um, well, it's funny you mention it. About 2 hours ago, maybe hour and a half ago, I deleted every social media app on my phone. They don't exist anymore. I didn't just like remove them from the home screen. They're just completely off my phone. There's no Facebook, there's no Instagram, there's no Messenger, there's no X, Twitter. It's all gone. So I said no to
Wow.
that. And I have no idea how long I'll be away from that. I sometimes go away for 6 months, 3 months. Some apps I stay away from for 12 months. And so I'm I'm essentially kind of disappearing for a little while. Aside from my newsletter and a couple in-person events, most people probably won't hear from me unless I'm on a podcast like this. And that's me, Aaron. What that really is, that's me saying no to the everyday addiction, and it is an addiction for me, of posting and scrolling and small engagement, and saying yes to working on my next writing project, which I wrote 200 pages over the course of months, and then I've done nothing, Aaron, not a single page written in 2 months, because I've been saying yes to things like social media, where not only do I get sucked in and addicted to it, I feel obligated, I feel all these expectations, and I just had to say enough is enough. So that's a pretty big no for me.
That
And in fact,
is.
I would argue, and I'm not challenging anybody out there, but I would argue that 99% of people listening right now couldn't do that for themselves. There's just too much connection to family, friends, social network, business, online relationships, building a brand, trying to sell products, trying to gain followers. I'm saying no to all of it. I don't care, because what I found myself was making absolutely zero progress, like a net zero progress. I mean, look, I write things like that have been a New York Times bestseller. I've written like one of the most popular vegan books of the whole year. And I have not been able to do that. I cannot find the discipline. I cannot find the focus. And that's knowing thyself. And I know myself well enough to say, Robert, enough is enough. Get off of social media. So if you were to look right now on Instagram, I probably posted 200 stories. They only allow, I think, 100 stories per 24 hours, but I have 2 accounts. So I just got it all out of my system. I was up till 1 a.m. I mean, I was posting a news story every 3 seconds. I was just basically going to my favorite folder, tagging certain people who I knew would reshare it for another 24 hours. So it's going to live for 48 hours on the internet, and then I disappear. And so I gave all my last little shout outs for my book. Oh, please buy my books, and shout outs to some brands and some friends. And I made no announcement. I didn't say this is my last post. I'm going away. I'm hiding. I just hit delete. I don't even know what my last post was, or my last story, or my last direct message. I just cut it off because I know I have that addictive personality. And I think most people probably would struggle to walk away from all social media. I mean, there's nothing to do on my phone. I could grab it and look at it. There's nothing there. There's no stimulation. I could check my book ranking on Amazon, or I could check, because I don't check news either. I've been news free since late last year. I'm not following the news. Again, that's for a mental health thing, a psychological thing. I figure if there's something important enough in the world, somebody will tell me. Like these fires in California, a friend texted me before I ever saw anything. And then, of course, I've heard about it, a bunch since then. And so for me, it's all about, what do I care most about? The little dopamine hits from people saying that, they like my muscles, or they like my smiling thumbs up, or they like my book, or getting no dopamine hits from the outside world for 3 or 4 months and writing, the best book that I can writing every single day. And that's what I'm saying yes to. So that's a long answer to your question about what I'm saying no and what I'm saying yes to right now. But I think it's fundamentally important to whether my next projects will be successful or not.
And I think anybody right now that is listening to this when it's launched, I think if everybody could take a little bit of that, a piece of that, what you just said, and tried it themselves, even if it was for a day, a week, a month, I think what a lot of people would find, as I bet you are about to tell me, is that quiets your mind so much that it frees up some of the space for the creative side, for what you are trying to do with the writing, and just focus on what is the task at hand and what's really important to you and what speaks to your soul. And I think because we have social media, which I didn't have that in high school, and it's not newer, but it has been around a lot, it's a bigger entity now than it ever was, that we have become so addicted to it. And yeah, there's a great part of it, right? Like, it is a way to keep connected, but you're going to keep connected with the people that really value you and want to know how you are by picking up the phone, or maybe sending you a text message, not having to go through your social media page to find out what Robert Cheeke is up to. And those are the people that should matter anyway, right?
Yeah.
Those are the people in the relationships that really are the ones that count, that you need. The other ones are great, and there's nothing wrong with them, because they could provide a lead for you for another writing or a speaking event. But if your main focus right now is this project, I think I love that you're taking it in such a great direction, like, and getting rid of the noise.
Well, I thank you for acknowledging that, Aaron. And it's also, for anyone listening, it's not new for me. So I've written 6 books now, working on a 7th and an 8th one. I haven't really talked about it, but I'm working on a couple other ones. And I can honestly say, Aaron, during the writing of at least 3 of those books, I was out. I was off social media. I didn't know what was going on in the world around me, in the lives of other people, unless they texted or I texted them. And I'll tell you, Aaron, I wrote a newsletter about this years ago. I mean, I'm talking like over half a decade ago. And I want to say it was the most popular newsletter I probably ever wrote, based on the responses from people, more than even when I announced that I got married, or announced that I became a New York Times bestseller. I wrote very openly, very honestly, and very transparently about what it was like to be completely away from social media for 6 months, especially coming from someone who basically built my life and reputation on social media. Let me tell you what happened, Aaron. And I'm just remembering from like 5-6 years ago when I did this for one of the first times. And it was really profound. What I found, I'm getting goosebumps already thinking about it. Like it freed up about 6 hours of my day. I mean, this is real. I mean, think about how much time people spend on their phone or scrolling or television or whatever, because I'm not a big television person either. I only watch basketball basically. But all of a sudden I had like 6 extra hours per day. What am I going to do with that time? I was more present in my marriage and in my friendships with our dogs. I was hiking for 3 hours in the mountains in Arizona where we lived, 4 or 5 days a week. I was exercising. I was more present. I wrote books, including some major bestsellers and very popular books. I would go out to dinner with friends or lunch with friends or anywhere with a group of people. And I wouldn't even bring my phone in with me. I left it in the car. Like that's how detached I was. There was nothing to look at, in case I wanted to take pictures maybe, but I actually trained myself to just leave it behind. And I would go to meals with friends and I would be sitting there like this. And everyone else was looking on their phone. They were doing something fun, or they were taking pictures, or they were looking at social media, they were doing stories, they were documenting the moments, but I was just sitting there quietly and no one talked to me. And then I went to the gym and I started leaving my phone in the car for like the next 3 years. I wouldn't even take it in the gym. And I looked around. It was LA Fitness, so popular big chain, big box gym. And everybody, except for maybe the older person, 70 plus, who's not addicted to their phone or doesn't have a smartphone. Right. Every single person was just sitting there on their phone. Sometimes I would notice, Aaron, even up to 20 minutes without doing a set. They would do like a set of shoulder press, then sit, and I would look around, and it could last for 20 minutes because sometimes I would be waiting for that machine, perhaps.
Right.
And then I recognized the only reason I noticed that is because I wasn't doing it anymore. You know what I used to do, Aaron? I would be doing exercise. Let's do shoulder press again. I would be like rep 6, 7, and I'd think it's something super funny to post on Twitter. And I would stop in the middle of the set and I go post it on Twitter, or X back then, or now it's X. And then I would sit and look at my phone and wait for responses. And I wasn't even doing the exercises. Right. So I got some of the best shape of my entire life. I built meaningful relationships. I wrote best-selling books. I exercised more. I was more present. I did more things. Every area of my life improved. And I shared this openly, honestly, and gave all these examples. And it was the most popular newsletter I'd ever written. And guess what, Aaron? The biggest fear, and I've had discussions with my social media influencer friends, including those that have hundreds of thousands of followers and really their brand is wrapped up in it and all this kind of stuff. And those who have smaller audiences too. And I asked them, could you walk away from this? And they can't. They just can't. There's this fear. Oh no, I have to engage constantly. I have to be in touch. I have to. No, you don't. Guess what happened when I came back after 6 or 9 months, Aaron? All my followers were still there. Everybody was still there. I came back, but now I had a book to offer that I didn't have before because I'm just doing all the little, chatting every day or posting photos and making no progress. But now I had a book, or now I had a tour, or now I had a new role with Vegan Strong, or now I had, or I had my box bundles, which you've been part of. And because I created that during the time where I had 6 hours extra every day to do stuff. Right. And there's this fear that I can't walk away from my audience. I have 261,000 followers on one Facebook page. I shut it down today. The page is still there. It's just not, right. I can't use it unless I log in, remember my password, get the app back and go and do it again. Or use a laptop or use a computer or use an iPad. But I don't plan to do that. It's too tedious. It's too clunky. It's not right. A desire to do so. And so there's this fear that, that we have to do this thing. But I question that and argue that one might be more productive if they actually get off of that or set some restrictions. And I'm just not able to do that. I can't put on do not disturb mode, and I just don't have the discipline or the focus or the capacity. I have to completely abstain from it. That's the only way that I can do it. And so I think people would be surprised that whatever you're trying to do, build a brand, build a business, all this stuff, we think that the social media aspect has to be done constantly all the time. But really, I got really good at writing newsletters, which is where 95% of my sales came from, not social media. They're from my newsletters. I got really good at building an in-person audience from touring and building relationships where everywhere I went, I met people that I knew, including like when I stopped by your house in Florida, after I just stopped by Will Bolswitz's house and Matt Fraser's house and, and touring Washington and Corinne Sutton down in Miami. And in-person relationships were so much more valuable to me than the online stuff. And I know people are thinking, well, of course, Robert, you can just outsource this. You can have a friend do it or hire someone, they can run your social media. Again, I didn't have the resources for that. I didn't have the desire to do that. I wanted to just totally back away. And so for me, that's been one of the greatest things that I've ever done. And it's so fresh. You're the first person I'm telling. I did this an hour and a half ago. And I already feel like a little bit of weight off my
Yeah.
shoulders and
Feel lighter.
expectation. Yeah, I'm just ready to get down to business. Like I want to, I want to go work on my books again. I can go to this farm tomorrow and hang out with the farm animals at the farm sanctuary. I can, go do the podcast interviews that I've got for Thursday and Friday or whatever. Like I don't know. I can focus on moving and packing up the house and not being as rushed. And there's just a lightness about it and an increased, in my opinion, increased productivity about it. And
Yeah.
also you mentioned this quietness and calmness when a lot of people can't even sit at a red light in their car without looking at their phone just to pass the 10 seconds, or when they're in the checkout line at the grocery store, at Sprouts or at Target. There's a compulsion that we can't sit still with our own thoughts for more than a few moments, or else we feel lonely, we feel whatever. And then lastly, I would say to your point about when you step back from this very busy, noisy world of thousands of people you follow and who follow you, and it's just too stimulating, and you do feel a little bit lonely, you kind of find out who your friends are. Those who haven't seen you online and kind of check in on you, and those that you want to reach out to. Like,
Right.
might only be 3 people that I keep in touch with on a regular basis because they're like my closest friends who I can share with and all of that. But then I build those relationships stronger than trying to
Yep.
have 200 relationships of laughing emojis on Instagram. Again, this
Right.
is just me, but I also have a track record of getting into the best shape of my life and writing like literally a New York Times bestseller and other popular books when I've said no to the noisy world around me, and I look inward and I just work. And one more, I got to say one last thing, because this is fundamentally important. And sorry for the long monologue here, but how often do we have a period of time that's uninterrupted? Like purely uninterrupted block of time for 4 hours, of 8 hours. It certainly doesn't happen in an office space. You can't with other desks near you or cubicles or people. It doesn't happen in a job where you're around people all the time, or noises or all these other distractions in traditional commercial retail and other types of things. Those of us who kind of work as contractors or at our computers or whatever, constant notifications of social media or email, or it's very, very hard to have uninterrupted work, which is, you mentioned it, that's where creativity happens. Creativity comes from uninterrupted work. That's scientifically true. You have to be able to focus for X amount of time to get into this flow state, which I've been in for decades as a writer, and it's the greatest feeling in the world. And if people aren't familiar with it, look it up. I don't want to, explain too much right now. But that's another really significant benefit, Aaron, is just this uninterrupted time to be creative and produce your best work, whatever your best work is. And for me, if I want to claim to be a writer, I want to be an author, I want to do these things, then I've got to put myself in a position to be successful. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And this is day one.
I, I feel like that's the book you should write at some stage in your life. If that's not the book that's on your plate right now, I think that message that we just had this dialogue about this last few minutes is really important and I think crucial for people to understand about that mental space and quieting the outside world. And it's not about shutting people out, it's about allowing this inner peace and time to let that creativity flow. And maybe you discover things about yourself that you never even knew once you have that space and when you push some of that other stuff out. And I think you're right. I think we flood ourselves with so much of this noise that it's almost like, when is the last time any of us has ever just taken a step back? Whether you delete your social media apps like you did, which I think is a profound statement and it is very impressive, Robert, because I don't think a lot of people would actually do that. And I love that you did that. Like it's a great statement. And then just to write something sort of about what you have been through, I think would be a really cool book. I know you love to write, and I want to head into the books too, but I think that that should be a little sticky note for you, is to sort of maybe write a book about just about that, like quieting the outside world to allow some creativity in. And maybe there's been books written about it, but coming from you, that would be the book I would want to read because you're doing it. You are the example. You've done it before. You've known what the outcomes are. It's allowed you to have that better relationship with your wife because you're more present, better relationships with your friends. Like these are things that aren't we all sort of striving for that, right? Like that's pretty important,
Yeah,
don't you
you know
think?
what? I might actually. I've done a little bit of writing about it, but like I said, it was the most. And I write a lot of newsletters, as you know, because I think you're on that list, or you read
Of
some of them.
course.
I write a lot, and that's like the most popular one I've written in like 6 years of writing literally hundreds of newsletters. Because sometimes I write, 5 a week or something, and I think I will write about that because there's nothing like a first person example. I mean, that's what so many of these finance books are about, or self-help books, or championship athlete books, or even some of my books about being an impactful vegan or being a plant-based athlete, which I've done for 30 years. Like experience speaks volumes, right? Because people want to know, hey, how do I build a big business? That's why people read business books, because they read it from someone who
Right.
became a billionaire, right? Or someone who had innovative technology, or someone who's been a whatever it is, a self-help guru or motivational speaker or a successful yogi or whatever. That's where these nonfiction uh, advice, miscellaneous self-help, personal development books come from. And that's kind of the space that I'm in. That's where all my books are categorized as on the bestseller list. They're in that advice, miscellaneous, how-to category. And so I think I will write about that, even if it's just an ebook, because I think it can be really profound. And one last thing on that, for example, Aaron, I was chatting with my best friend Jordan, who I've known since we were in preschool. And I mean, he's someone I'm in touch with literally every single day. Like if we go 2 days without texting, it's kind of weird. So we're in touch every single day, just small talk, inside jokes, or sometimes very serious stuff about like my move or my job or finances or relationship. Like we do also very deep, heavy stuff. And he has a PhD in world religion and religious studies and Buddhism, and he's a meditation practitioner, and he has a master's degree, a PhD. He's very bright, very one of the smartest people I know, and so I enjoy that communication with him. And so I told him that he knows that I've been away from the news since late last year, November, and so we were just sharing these audio messages via phone back and forth, and I was explaining that how liberating it is to be away from the noise of news, which most of us don't wait for it to happen. We seek it out. We're just constantly checking news websites and news apps and what we should be afraid of and what we should be scared of and what we should be angry about and what we should be passionate about and what we should be. And then we can't live our lives. We're just addicted to like, what's the next story? What's the next crazy thing? What's the next? And we seek it out instead of instead of trying to quiet our mind, we're bringing more noise in. We have the TV on all the time. We have the radio on all the time. We're actively, we literally will go to news websites just looking, what's new today? What's new tomorrow? I have to know. I have to know. And it doesn't make your life better. You think that like, oh, being informed is so important, all this stuff. To some degree, yes, but also, like I said, if it's a big enough story, like the hurricanes or the wars or the bombings
Right.
or the
Or the
fires,
fires.
somebody's going to tell you, right? Someone like your
Yep.
friend or your family, someone's going to, hey, did you hear about that? Or hey, I hear there's something going on in your region. I wanted to check in on you. Or hey, this event is canceled because of flooding, or I want to make sure it's on your radar. Like, I just don't think we need to live in a society that's obsessed with constantly looking for some sort of sensational headline that's going to bring out an emotion in us. It's going to, in many cases, adversely affect our mood or our stress or anxiety. What we need to do, I think, is slow down, to quiet down, to not let the outside, you know, outside sources of news or sensationalism impact us on a daily basis, especially since statistically 99 point something percent of all those big headlines won't impact us individually. Some
Right.
will, some laws that get passed, absolutely. Some people who are in political power, or yes, it could impact us to some degree. But most of us, not on a daily basis. It's not going to like completely upend our lives. And for those that it does upend their lives, I'm obviously sympathetic to that. And I
Of
realize I'm a
course.
very privileged individual, and I don't want to dismiss that. I'm just saying, for many of the people also privileged in the Western society who are listening to a podcast like this, who live in a democratic society or a very safe or free part of the world, I think there's more we can do with our time, including helping others, than just being obsessed with the noise around us. And I'm kind of a little bit of a testament to that my life has been markedly better, measurably, substantially better in almost every way when I remove those things from my life. The constant news, the constant noise, the constant social media, the constant detachment from connection by just looking and scrolling and stressing and thinking and worrying, and I don't get anything done. And the only reason I fall back into that, Aaron, is because of things like dopamine and addiction, where after I take 6 months or 3 months or 5 or 8 months away, and then I come back, I do get all the pats on the back, or the, oh, your muscles look good, or oh, you're handsome, or oh, whatever. That they do create dopamine, but those are, I don't know if those are great things to be addicted to. Like, do I need this inflated ego? Do I need to get sucked into uh, arguing with people on the internet about protein? Like, can I go out and actually build, this body and lead by example by having the time and focus to do that, and then share
Right.
those results with the people? So I know I'm a bit of a long-winded, complicated mess over here, but I do think I would have some valuable things to contribute in that area of writing. So on your recommendation, and it's something I've thought of too, I might actually write more about that, and what that world looks like, and why we don't have to be afraid of not knowing what's going on at every second around the world, and we can just be present with where we are and who we're with, and take it a day at a time.
Yeah, I agree. And that would be certainly a book or something, if you did write that, that I would be first in line, because I definitely struggle with that. I quit watching the news probably, I think I've watched the news in at least probably 5 years, because I realized the noise. And like, I'm from Washington, D.C. I do not like the politics. I do not like the noise of that. And so being in Florida, it's been certainly better because you're not so surrounded by it. But I think if you did write something a little bit more almost like a blueprint of like, hey, try this, because this was what this could help you. I am an example of it. This is what it did for me. Just like people who do bombard us every day with, how do you have muscle and you're vegan? Because that is a question that we both probably still get on a daily basis. And I try to explain it sometimes, but having something like a blueprint to tell people, hey, this is a really good way to open your mind a little bit and make some better habits for you and have deeper, meaningful relationships, be more productive, have a better body, right? But you're right about the gym. I mean, I work out from my home gym, but even when I have friends that are like, "Oh yeah, I went to the gym today," I was like, "And so how long did you work out for?" "Oh, I don't know." And I'm like, were you paying attention to what you were doing or were you scrolling, through your phone? And a lot of people think just because they show up, whether it be the gym, whether it be to dinner with their friends, or whether it be um, in a group situation where you're maybe speaking and like other people are there too, feeding off of you, and they're on their phone. It's like, how much are we really absorbing? How much are we really giving? How much are we really paying attention? And I think that we've kind of really covered that in this conversation so far. And I think I love that this conversation went in this direction because I think it's a conversation that should be more apparent and more in the forefront. Because I want to divert and talk about your books, but I love that this has gone in this direction because it's really a powerful tool that I think that so many people could really benefit from. And because you're such a voice in our vegan community. And let's go ahead and just start talking a little bit about what I wanted to talk about today, besides those great conversations. Because see, we were listening and we weren't being diverted through other things. We found a topic that is really, I think, important. So I want to talk about, before I let you go, I want to talk about the Impactful Vegan and some of the books that you've written, because I want to know what inspired you for each one of those. And that's sort of like, well, how did you start writing? Like, where did that come from? Because I know you've been a passionate vegan for 30 years now, right?
Yeah.
Since you were 15.
Yeah.
So how did you start writing?
I actually started writing before I became vegan. I started writing when I was in the third grade, when I was 8 years old. I wrote a bunch of children's adventure stories. This is back in the 1980s. So, we laminated them and spiral bound them. In fact, I just saw them as I'm packing up the house here to move. I just came across those books written back in 1988. And, I found something rewarding from that experience. There was a deep level of joy and satisfaction. I was also a perfectionist, and I struggled with that too, because if I couldn't draw my stick figures very well or my cursive handwriting, I remember getting mad and scratching it out. And I was perfectionist back then. I still have some of those tendencies, which I'm trying to let go of, which is difficult at times. But I decided at a young age that's what I wanted to do. And so I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. I mean, I'm one of these people that I wrote a 100-page book as a teenager. I had a writing coach in high school, just like people have a track and field coach or a basketball coach or soccer coach or martial arts coach. I had a writing coach literally as a junior or senior in high school. I took a writing class at a community college. I didn't go to traditional university. I went massage therapy school and trade school and that kind of stuff, but writing was always an interest of mine. I was working on cruise ships, traveling around the world, and there were lots of fun things to do in all these countries, and I did those things. But sometimes I would just sit in my little cabin or my guest room or somewhere, and I would write, even though I was in an exotic part of the world. And I have photos of that. I just came across those too, photos of me back 22 years ago with books and papers all over a table writing. And because I think I put in that work, there's no overnight success or anything like that. I had a lot of experience under my belt, the whole 10,000 hours or whatever, who knows how many hours I spent doing it. And I found a knack for it, even without professional training, so to speak, or college education in that area or anything like that. I just put in the work and I got better at it. And then I was ready to finally publish a book and couldn't afford to do that. It was 15 years ago. I had to borrow money from someone, my boss at the time, to self-publish my first book, Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness, 15 years ago. And then, I self-published another book and another book and another book. And then I became one of the most prolific self-published authors in America, in the top 1%. That landed me a major book deal with the world's second largest and the world's oldest publisher, HarperCollins. I brought in Matt Frazier. I flew across the country, met with him, asked him if he would co-author with me. He agreed. We did. We released a book that was an instant New York Times bestseller, a #1 international bestseller. It's now in 9 languages worldwide, even in places like it's in Polish and Hungarian and Chinese and Korean and some languages you might not expect, but it's there. In addition to the popular ones like Spanish and German and all of that, Korean. It's pretty amazing. And then my co-author and I decided to go separate ways. He wanted to pursue business. I wanted to continue to pursue writing. So I wrote The Impactful Vegan. And to your question about some of where those ideas came from, they came from what I spent I haven't even checked the time, but the first block of our conversation talking about. I was working on the farm I grew up on, harvesting walnuts by myself under these 45-year-old walnut trees for 8 hours a day. That's when I came up with the ideas for the plant-based athlete. That's when I got the idea for the Impactful Vegan. That's when I got the idea for many of the things that I've done. I've been away from the rest of the world. I'm out there in nature by myself. I'm creative. I'm not distracted. I'm doing physical work, which stimulates creativity through exercise and physical labor. And those ideas came to me, and then I had to go inward and find the time and requisite opportunity to spend working on them, which is a philosophy. If I could share one thing, that's one of the most valuable tools I've learned in my entire life. It's what I learned about writing from a former university president, Dr. David Schleich, who I've only met once in my entire life, yet I still give him credits and some of my books as transforming the way that I look at the world as a writer. I just met him one time as I was touring this university to use their venue for a vegan festival, nearly 20 years ago or something. And he asked me he was trying to recruit me for their naturopathic university, because I was into all this veganism and fitness and health and wellness and massage therapy. And I said, oh, no, I'm going to be a writer. I'd been writing for years, but never published anything. He's like, well, how's that going? And I'm like, do you have anything published? I'm like, well, no, like, some articles and websites, magazine interviews and all that. But so it was unbelievably profound. Simple, but profound. This is what he said. He said, Robert, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home and I want you to write 2 pages every day. I don't care if it's good. I don't care if it's bad. You write 2 pages every single day, and soon you've written a book. And you know what I did, Aaron? I went home and I didn't just write 2 pages. Some days I wrote 10 pages. Some days I wrote 20. One day on a flight to Hawaii, which is pretty far from where I was in Oregon, I wrote, I think, 28 pages in one day during that flight. And you know what? In a matter of months, I had my first book done, and it went on to sell 20,000 copies and opened up doors for me to write another book that sold another 20,000 copies, another book. And, and it's something I've used to this day, where it's basically setting myself a consistent streak with a minimum. I've got to write at least 2 pages a day. So even if it's at 1 o'clock in the morning, because I don't do like a midnight cutoff. It's just before I go to bed. I've been in Las Vegas, at like the Mr. Olympia with a bunch of my vegan fitness friends. And I'm off in the corner of a hotel casino in their like buffet that's closed at this hour, writing my book at 2 a.m, because I have to meet that deadline, or spending a whole day in New York City signing books and going to Times Square with my books and going to the biggest bookstores, like 4-story Barnes & Noble bookstore in Manhattan, New York City, and then getting back to where I'm staying in Jersey at 1:30 in the morning. And hey, I haven't written yet. I got to get down to business. But because I create that discipline and that consistency streak, what it does is a few things, Aaron. One, when you write every single day, you get better at it. If you were to practice a foreign language every single day for hours a day, you think you'd improve? If you were to exercise or practice yoga every single day for hours a day, you think you'd get better at it? If you were to invest that into anything, learning finances or being better in your relationship or learning auto mechanics or anything else, you think you'd improve? You think you'd get any better at it? Of course you do. Everyone says they want to write a book or build a brand or build a company or make a film, and they're not doing the work. And so it does a couple things. It makes you better. You write every single day, and some stuff sucks. So I've even years after I've been a New York Times bestseller, I write stuff. I'm like, man, that's terrible. Even if the day before was really good and the day after that was like really good, that one particular Wednesday was awful. And I don't know why, but you do it anyway. You know,
Right.
my latest book, The Impactful Vegan, I don't know if you know this. I wrote 1,000 pages for that book and only 270 got published, right? 75% never made it. But that's what you
Why?
do. Just like, because that's how the book gets better. Like you think they film, just 3 hours of Titanic? No, they probably film for hundreds of hours and they pick the
Right.
best 3 hours. And then this film is one of the most successful films in the history of the world. All films are like that. How many songs do artists perform and only 10 get on the album? Right? They write 80 or 100, but only 10 make it. Same with the book. I have a document of just 500 extra pages that never made it. And that's just one document. Plus the, 100 that was already edited and finalized that the publisher scrapped. They said, remove those 3 chapters, get them out of there, write new ones. But because I wrote every day, I had that material and I got better at it and better at it and better at it. And my book has perfect 5-star reviews on Amazon. There's nothing but 5-star reviews. And it's been out for 7 months. And there's a lot of reviews, 1 to 200, for a niche topic book, and 1,500 reviews for this one just on Amazon US alone. But so you get better at it, and also you get closer to completing the project, right? If you write, yay, 2 pages, 5 pages, 10 pages, whatever your minimum is, it could be 2 paragraphs. But again, 2 paragraphs won't get you very far. I would say for anyone listening, if you want to be a writer, I like the minimum of 1 to 2 pages. I mean, even if you had 1 page a day, it'd take you a whole year to write a 350-page book. I don't have time for that, right? I want to write 2, 3, 4, 5 pages a day. Like to me, like 6 is a really good number. I write 6 pages a day. What is that? 100? Is that 180 pages in a month or something? Like it's, you really get good at it, and then it makes the project done, because then you have to go back and edit it for another 9 or 12 months. Like once you write, that's not the end of it. You've got to edit it over and over. I mean, I've read The Impactful Vegan over 20 times from start to finish. Just every time, okay, take that sentence out, take that paragraph out. I used to love that chapter, not anymore. Let's replace it with this. Here's some new data. And so that's one of the greatest lessons I ever learned, was to write 2 pages every day, which is, Aaron, equate it to anything else. Walking 2 miles every day, eating 2 salads a day, right? Texting 2 friends a day. The idea is just to be consistent. That's all it is. But it was the way that Dr. David Schleich worded it. And I'd never heard it before because I was a young 20-something-year-old kid, didn't know what the heck I was doing. And he just said, go write 2 pages a day. And that's what I did. And I've done it now for 15 years. And, I've sold 140,000 copies of my books, and I've toured to 5 continents, and I've had a fairly enriching life that I would not have had. I honestly would not have had without this stranger that I've seen one time in my life, but I remembered his name. I've looked him up online. I should probably reach out to him, but I haven't done it.
Yeah. But you should reach out to him.
But like, that's how that happens. One person can change the trajectory of your life just by something they share with you. That's the beauty of podcasts. That's the beauty of conversation. That's the beauty of relationship and networking and talking and thinking. And I'm sure there's, even though I'm pretty long-winded and ramble at times, I'm sure there's a few things people are going to pick up from this conversation that could change the trajectory of what they do. Whether they say, you know what, Robert, I'm going to get off of social media and I'm going to live my best life. Or, you know what, I want to write my memoir. I want to tell the story of my life, even just for my own family, my kids, my grandkids. I'm going to write 2 pages a day because I learned it from you. Like that's what I get out of this. I don't need to, we can talk about, eating high nutrient density foods and lifting weights and building muscle, and that's fine. But I think there's there's these underlying topics are fundamentally more important because that gets you out of the starting blocks. That gets you out the door, to
Yeah,
do whatever you want to do, use these examples map it onto any
right.
aspect of your.
Exactly. And I think like exactly you could take everything that we just talked about in this last whatever 20, 30 minutes, and you could take that into the gym. You could take that into your relationship. You could take that into anything, any aspect of your life and be better. And I think I honestly think that that is going to be the biggest takeaway from this conversation is that I mean, I was planning on talking to you about a million other things, but I'm as I am doing more and more podcasts, I don't want it to be cookie cutter. I want it to just be authentic and real and let's just chat and see where it goes. And I was really thankful for you to be so honest and open with what you're doing with your life right now, because I think that's the conversation that's going to cause more of an outreach for people to do better in whatever aspect they're doing. And I think that personally for me, I'm going to walk away from this conversation and be like, wow, Robert really said some things to me that resonate and that I'm going to take away and implement into my own life. And hopefully I'll be a better mom, a better wife, a better entrepreneur, a better, you know, personal trainer, a better health coach, all the hats that I wear, because I struggle probably like you with doing so many things all the time, but are you good at any of them? You know, it's like you're thin in all these areas because you are doing so many things, and because you were yes people as entrepreneurs. Like, yep, I'll do that because that could help me down the road. But I think we are taking away from the true north of what we're doing because we're not sure exactly what to do. So I think this conversation is going to be really beneficial to a lot of people who listen to this, and hopefully it sparks that light bulb in them to maybe look at things a little differently. I mean, isn't that why we have these conversations? Like it always is to better ourselves. We could talk about how all the benefits of plant-based eating because you and I live that life and we are advocates, and you more so than anybody I know have been such a great example in the vegan bodybuilding world of eating plants and being able to maintain your physique and to grow and to be successful in that realm. And then here we are, we're learning all these other things about you as a writer and what that takes too. And again, those are two important things about Robert Cheeke that we want to know about. And now we're hearing this third thing that helped you to do that. And I think that's what I want this message to get out is you can be successful in all those areas collectively, but you're going to have to do some more focused and really dive deep into being a little less connected and maybe a little less scattered to sort of really figure out what it is. Because I just listening to you talk is so inspiring about like these are tools that we can use without having to spend money on a coach or a writing coach or a personal trainer. Like you can do all those things. Like it's just like going to the gym. I always tell people don't waste your money on a gym membership. You can work out at home for free. There's a million YouTube videos. You can get a video workout. It's you doing it though, and doing it without scrolling on your phone, right? Like you're in it. Like you're actually putting the work in, just like you were talking about making that commitment to the 2 pages a day, even though you've done a lot more than that. But like, I think that's attainable. 2 pages a day for somebody who really wants to be a writer probably isn't a far reach, but it's getting those 2 pages a day. Like you can say you're doing it, but have you done it? Or it's like, are you going to commit to 20 minutes every day for a workout, whether it be in the gym, outside, in your home, wherever? Are you going to be consistent with that without scrolling on your phone and checking your email and throwing the stick with the dog because your dog is home? I mean, it's like I really am loving the fact that we have this conversation to really identify some really key things to be successful in any of those areas. I'm so appreciative that you are sharing this.
Yeah, it's definitely a different conversation than I've had on a lot of podcasts, and different conversation than I probably expected or thought that we'd have. But I'm grateful for it. Like I've enjoyed it, and thank you for allowing me to share like what really goes on behind the scenes, because I think that's, you can look at someone and say, wow, they're in great shape, or wow, they have this best-selling book, or wow, they do this, or you could be maybe impressed by it or inspired by it or whatever. But if you don't know how they got there, like it takes those quiet, disciplined moments of writing every day. Or Aaron, I was sick a couple of weeks ago. I got sick during the Christmas holiday from my niece who was sick, and it really threw me off. I didn't go to the gym for 10 days in a row. I mean, I had like RSV or the flu, or, I mean, you even saw some of my emails. Like I was even too tired to type on the computer. It was really, fairly severe for me, but I've bounced back, and I've been at the gym for 7 days in a row. And that's not overtraining. Some of those have been lighter workouts, just biceps, in front of the TV, watching my favorite basketball team. Other ones have been, I pressed 130,000 pounds combined, all my reps and sets, in a leg workout. If you, a set of 600-pound leg press for 10 reps, it counts as 6,000 pounds. The app adds it all up. And I had these big, heavy workouts and I had some lighter workouts. But the fact is, I got right back and have been at it for 7 days a week. And I'll scale that down to 6 days a week. I might take today as a rest day, for example. But these are the things behind the scenes that build, a strong and fit physique. They're the things that build the discipline, that they're the things that the writing that a couple pages every day or more that helps a book get out there, and a book and the wherewithal and the self-awareness to say, you know what, this is going to sting and it's going to hurt, and I'm going to lose a bunch of casual friendships for a while, but I'm going to remove myself from the social media world completely. Full stop, end of story. I can't look at it. I don't know what's there. It's not even on my phone. I couldn't look at it if I want to, but I'm going to create this better version of me because I know how dopamine affects me and sucks me back in to want to get addicted to these things. And I have to abstain from them by removing myself completely. And now I'm going to go out there. Who knows, Aaron, I might pump out like 3 ebooks plus a full-length book just in the next few months, because the focus is there, and wasn't there before. And I hope that for those who are spinning their wheels, and trust me, I've been spinning my wheels most of my life, but those who are kind of spinning their wheels, or things just aren't quite working out or whatever, I would say that's one of the biggest things we can do is pull back from news, pull back from social media, quiet the noise, and get real with yourself. And create, willpower and motivation they always fade away. They're never going to stay forever. But routines and habits can. That's just who we are. You do something every single day, that's who you become. And so, are you someone who writes every day? Are you someone who exercises every day? Are you someone who eats healthy every day? Are you someone who has positive, communication with others, uplifting, optimistic stuff every day, or not? That's kind of who we are, and who we can become if we so choose. So I think that some of those principles can be really, really important in our forward progress as individuals trying to find happiness in the world around us. And I hope some of those things have been helpful for listeners today.
I hope so too. What would you call that book?
I haven't even thought of it. I don't know for sure, but there would definitely be some sort of subtle hint to, in the subtitle or something, of kind of like saying no to the little things to say yes to the big things. Like that's what you have to do. It's a trade-off. You have to sacrifice. You have to let go of the daily, these daily dopamine hits of flattery and compliments and fun interactions and jokes and funny memes and silly videos. And you have to let go of that in order to really do your best focused work on something that's, I would argue, more meaningful, whatever that is. That could even just be at parenting, right? Or at your job, or at like your relationship, or caring for your parents, or whatever it is. Sometimes we have to have trade-offs. In fact, we almost always have to have trade-offs. And we have to say no to the little things and yes to the big things to create the life we envision. So it would be something like that. That would be in the subtitle. That would be the theme. And then there would be lots of stories and anecdotes and interviewing other people from different cultures that are maybe not so obsessed with some of these social reinforcements and affirmations and all these social feedback and everything that kind of our Western society and other societies are addicted to, and just get different perspectives. I think it would have some of that aspect. Then it would also probably challenge people to say, there's so many different ways to look at this, Aaron. Like, I'm 45. The average adult American only lives to 77. I have to do a little bit of math there. Let's just round a little bit. I only have like 40 summers for the rest of my life. Like, when you look at it that way, I have like 38
Right.
summers.
That puts it in a whole different perspective.
Right. My parents are already both over that average age. I may only see my parents a few more times in my life. Not a few more years. I may only see them a few more times.
Right.
Right. Like, this kind of stuff gives you some perspective, right? Like,
Yeah.
I only have like, 4 more summers with my dog or 8 more summers with my dog. What do I want to do with that? Right. I think the book would be about answering those questions. You've got, and heck, I don't remember the first 5 years of my life. None of us do, really. The first, when you're a toddler, you can't remember that. So I don't remember anything until I was around age 4 or 5. So I've only remembered 40 years of my life, and I've got 37 left on average, plain statistics. And then, I just heard in a podcast yesterday that the average age of good health ends at 67. That's just the average for Americans.
Right.
And so I really only have like 22 years, statistically, of good health. So I have 22 summers. When am I going to go to Italy or Spain or,
Right.
like, is it going to happen or is it not? I think we need to start, regardless of the age of anyone listening here, and it's harder for young people to really think about this when you're in your 20s and 30. You don't really think about that. But, and not that I'm very old. I think I'm pretty young. I've got the white in my beard, but I'm early mid 40s. But I don't have that much time left to do what I would like to experience in this world. I think that's worth reflecting on. I think it's worth thinking actually pretty hard about,
Yeah,
spending
I agree.
spending weeks, spending months, whether that's meditation, whether that's quietness, brainstorming, whether that's thinking, sitting in the sauna, thinking, whether it's exercising and maybe without music and just thinking as you're running or jogging or walking or lifting weights. Like, what does the rest of my life look like? And how can I contribute to the world? How can I enrich the lives of those around me? How can I make the world better for others? How can I make the world better for myself? What do I do? Like, we have a finite amount of time here. Yes, I believe that a combination of a plant-based diet, exercise, low stress can enable someone to live far beyond the average 77. Obviously, we see that with Dr. Campbell and Esselstyn at age 90 right now, and all these other people. I've got a neighbor who's 93. There's obviously many of us can. I'm just playing the real statistics, and that's what most of us need to look at. That we've got a ticking clock here, and there's a lot we'd like to do with our lives. And if we can use some of those principles that I shared today to find that inner happiness and peace and fulfillment and contentment while still, I think, contributing to the world in positive ways, I think that's a good way to spend your time.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Robert. Thank you so much for sharing that too. I love where this conversation went today, and I love that we kind of went off on a little tangent, but it was
Sure
really
did.
meaningful. It was really meaningful to me. And I think too, the people that are going to hear this podcast, I feel like everybody would get something from that. And I really feel honored that you shared some of those things with me and our listeners. And I just want to thank you. And now that I know that you're off social media, I'm going to reach out to you probably via email and check in on you.
Yeah.
And maybe I can get you back on again.
Yeah, we can dive into the whole protein, carbohydrates, fat, sports supplements, calorie density, nutrient density, recovery, building muscle. Happy to talk about that stuff, or simply being an impactful vegan by using your strengths and talents and resources and network to help animals. Happy to talk about that stuff. But today, I think was, it's just a byproduct of really how I'm feeling right now, having just got off social media 2 hours ago and reflecting on what I'm going to do with even the rest of my day. Like that just, I think that helped steer this conversation where it went. And I'm also grateful with where it went, and that the fact that this wasn't a cookie cutter set of predetermined questions that you had. What's your favorite topping to put on a pizza? What did you have for lunch today? Those are fine too, but I appreciate your flexibility in today's conversation, Aaron. And I hope that people do find some value in it, or they'll just, maybe think that I'm crazy, and that's okay too.
It was very authentic, and you very much um, touched a very deep emotion in me, and I feel really honored to have had this conversation with you. Thank you. And maybe we'll have you on again once you've had some time to do some writing and stuff, and we'll check in on you. And if anybody wants to get a hold of you, they should go to email you. How should
Yeah. Yeah.
email?
Email,
Okay.
Robert at veganbodybuilding.com. Like, even when I've been on social media, I've never been a big direct message person. I think you probably even know that. It takes me days to respond, or weeks, or I don't even check direct messages a lot of times. I'm just an email person. I just would rather associate my laptop with work than like my phone, and just constantly being glued to it. That's another
Right.
psychological. Just don't want to check messages on my phone constantly. It just, it's that's one more thing that pulls me away from being present.
Right.
So
Right.
yes, email. People can find me email. I'm just search probably Robert Cheeke email. You'd find it on Google. I think pretty easy to track down. And people can reach out anytime, and I'll do my best to respond.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. You've been a good friend to me, especially today. I think you've really taught me some things I needed to hear, maybe more than I knew I needed to hear it. So thank you for your time and being present with me today. And I think this was a really conversation worth having, and we'll talk soon.
I appreciate the opportunity, Aaron. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Thanks.
This is my daughter. Hi, Zoe. This is
Hey, how are
Robert.
you?
Good, how are you?
I'm
We
doing
just
well,
did a
thanks.
podcast, and he's a New York Times bestselling author. Well, I have his books.
Yeah.
So thank you,
Yeah,
Robert.
you got I got one bag left. I was eating them when I was
Oh,
sick. I left one bag on the shelf here for display.
you're so sweet.
So thank you for sending those. Appreciate that. And now that I'm feeling better, I can start taking some photos of the products too.
Oh, that'd be great. But I won't see you on social media.
Nope, you can share them. I can email them to you. You can share the photos, but I
Okay.
won't be there. I don't know what's going on in social media as of a couple hours ago.
Deleted all of his apps.
I'm in the
No
dark.
Facebook, no
No
Twitter or
Instagram,
X,
no
Instagram, nothing.
no
TikTok's
Messenger.
getting banned anyway.
Oh, TikTok's getting banned?
Yeah, on the 19th.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, see, and I don't follow the news, so I don't even know. I mean, I heard rumblings about it, but yeah, I didn't even know that was
Yeah,
happening.
I don't follow the news either. So I've done one thing in your checkbook of getting rid of some things, but I've got a ways to go. But that'll make me a better mom.
That's just that's the thing is, Aaron, that's just my checklist, right? It can be, anyone can have their own uh parameters or things they put on that list. This is just mine because of my own self-awareness of my own addictions to things like social media or my phone, or addictions to scrolling, or addictions to distraction. Like, that's just my list that helps me, but I think it probably would help a lot of people.
I mean, extreme. I mean, just even just chatting about it, like I could just feel like the emotion of like, God, how much time would free up in my day? I'm
Yeah.
always just like, oh, I gotta post that. I gotta check LinkedIn. I haven't done anything LinkedIn today. I need that for my brand. And, just, when what I should be doing is out going to accounts, selling my product. to make
Yeah.
more money for sales. That's my passion, is to get my product out there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And sometimes we're distracted by what we think is the best thing to do, or what we think is most beneficial, like constantly, I mean, promoting or whatever. I mean, I've actually lost hundreds of followers in the last few months. Like, I'm not gaining them. I've had a net loss with all, I constantly promote and, I sell, yeah, I might see a spike in sales here and there or something, but um, it doesn't compare to like my in-person tours. I just rocked this vegan holiday market in Boulder. I rocked the one in Denver. I had a great tour this past year. Yeah, it was expensive. Yeah, it had some challenges, but it also was really, really good. So yeah, sometimes we think, because society tells us that, constantly being on social media all the time is in the best interest of our brand or business or products. But I don't know. I would argue that, I think, and I would say nurturing those accounts and getting more stores to carry it, or selling through more store demos, or more coupon programs, or
right,
more or whatever, or formulating more products, or collaborating more with other entrepreneurs. And I think there's just, those are oftentimes more beneficial avenues than what we think is the standard operating procedure, because that's what's been kind of told to us or programmed to us, very much like news. They want you, it's entertainment. They want you connected to it. They want you constantly checking. They want you constantly in fear. They want you constantly mad. They want you constantly in conflict with somebody else, with your neighbor. Like, that's clearly how it's designed, but one has to step back from it in order to see that. Just like, I promise you, Aaron, I promise you, 99% of the people obsessed with their phone at the gym do not know that other people are, because they don't see them, because they're doing this. They can't see the person over there is on it. It's when you back up from it and you look at the world around you, and everyone is obsessed with doing something that's in many cases counterproductive, but they don't know it because they can't see it.
right,
And so that's what I will say to that, is that I think you could explore some other avenues for brand expansion, or increased sales, or increased retailers, or collaborating with other all these different online vegan retailers who already are looking for products like yours, or other entrepreneurs who have their products in X number of stores, and find out who their buyer is. And there's all these other things, right? That even just freeing up 2 hours a day would open up all these doors. But for me, it's like 6 hours. That's how much I spend collectively posting, reading, commenting, posting again, Facebook, 5 different accounts that I have, and Instagram, multiple accounts that I have. And for me, it's a lot of hours. And so for me, it's like really beneficial when you get 5 or 6 hours back per day. Imagine.
yeah, that's a lot.
Out.
Will you hold up the bag again?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Love it.
Did you get it? Here, I'll do a flexing one too.
Oh yeah, always with the flexing. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And I can send some photos. I'm like, just finally kind of, even though I've been in the gym for 7 days, I've still been a little bit sniffly, a little bit.
Right.
I had a pretty bad flu or something. So
I know. Yeah, it was bad.
I'm better now, but I'm still a little. So I haven't taken photos.
Send me some pictures if you think of it. That'd be great. And then right before I let you go, you said something to me, and I just want to close out by saying, you said those were the things on your checklist, but I think though at least a couple of those things should be on everybody's checklist. So I would make that what everybody should maybe be doing a little bit of. Maybe they don't completely delete all their apps, but they say, set your timer for 10 minutes and allow yourself to do that, and then shut it down. Maybe that's a way in, but I don't think that's just on your checklist. I think that should be on everybody's checklist.
Yeah.
If somebody is wanting a better business, a better body, a better relationship, these are some things that we all should be doing. So anyway.
Yeah. And we didn't even talk about the benefits of better sleep when you're not constantly scrolling or checking, and when you're not only because the light or stimulation, but also like sometimes it brings stress. Like I get, accused of using steroids every single day, which is ridiculous because I'm lifetime drug free. Plus, to me, I don't look like someone who uses steroids. I just don't have that look full of veins and this certain type of muscle. Like, but sometimes that does bother me. Like, so then I have to think about that. Like, how do I respond to these people who, whatever. And so it just adds stress too,
Yeah,
and which then
exactly.
affects sleep, not just because of the light or you're staying up late, but because some of the emotional, you see something, heartbreaking, or you learn of a friend, lost their loved one or their house burned down, and
Right.
sometimes it's good to be aware of that stuff, but also it's never ending. There's always something
Yep.
catastrophic everywhere, anywhere in the
Right.
world. There's always
That's why I quit
something.
watching the news.
Yeah, it's almost always negative because that's what gets attention.
Yep.
And because it creates fear and it creates division and it creates worry and it creates stress and panic and frantic, and that's what gets eyeballs. That's what gets attention. So anyway, well, I will let you go, and I've got to respond about the farm sanctuary tomorrow. It looks like they're writing
Okay.
me.
All right. Well, thank you again for your time, and we'll chat.
Okay, you got it.
Thank you.
Welcome, Aaron. Thanks
It
for
was
having
a
me on.
great conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
You too.
Thanks. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.